Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today, at the request of a donor, we are playing a bit of a spicy hybrid of Black-White Energy and a Eumidian Hatchery style deck. And you know me, if you put Eumidian Hatchery in a deck, I'm going to be interested in it. So this is a Yorion build, so we have a lot of stuff going on. But the main game plan is very familiar. It's Guard of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Ajani, Voice of Victory, Phelia, Haliya, that sort of stuff. We've seen that before. We've also got the Starfield Shepherd, which you sometimes see, which can then go and find us our 1-drops like Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride. We've then got a bit of tech from like the Death and Taxes decks, where we have Overlord of the Balemurk, which is great to flicker with Phelia, along with the Orcish Bowmasters. Now, we've got some Plows and some Solitudes to keep things at bay, and the Thoughtseizes as well. But this is where we start getting into how we're going along and making our Eumidian Hatchery work. So we have the Hatchery and we have Flagstones. So we have White Orchid Phantom, which can hit our opponent's lands, or it can hit our lands. We can blow up our Hatchery for tokens, or we can blow up our Flagstones to ramp us. We then have Souls of the Lost. This is a card I have played before on the channel. So it's a 2-mana guy, as additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. So we're going to sacrifice our Eumidian Hatchery, get a bunch of guys, and then this has power equal to the number of permanents in our graveyard. The other card we have is one that I've certainly not played before. This is Braids, Arisen Nightmare. 1 black for a legendary nightmare creature. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent of their choice that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. Kind of reminds me of an old card from Zendikar, World Queller I think it was, which does a very similar thing but without the draw life clause. I think that costed like 5 mana. So this allows us to like sacrifice lands and tax our opponent a little bit on that front. Now, it should be noted, we do not have wastelands in this deck, so we're not going to be great at matching our opponent's lands up. So this isn't going to be a strategy to completely deny our opponent all their resources, but I thought it was something important to mention. We've got a few double-face cards. We've got some Boggart Trawler and Witch Enchanter. This just gives us a nice bridging between having the right number of lands and the right number of spells, because we have things that are both. Over to the sideboard, we've got a Karakas we can board in if we just need more land, or if we have targets we want to be bouncing with this. It's kind of awkward having this in the sideboard, but I think it's one of those things where it probably ends up being right here. We got a couple of Disruptor Fruits, a generic anti-combo sort of card. Some Null Rods for all of these artifact decks around. A big chunk of Graveyard Hate, some Deafening Silence for like Storm decks, and this can slow down Omnitel a bit and gives a chance to blow up their enchantment or whatever. And we have a couple of Exercise which can blow up enchantments or big creatures or artifacts. And because it's Exile, it can get rid of the One Ring, so this does a lot of work. One other thing I should probably mention about the main deck, we have 3 copies of Fetid Heath. This is not a land you see very often in Legacy, because it can be a bit sketchy if people waste down your other lands, because you need to have a black or a white land to tap to put into this, but all of our lands are black or white lands, which is another reason we're not running the wastelands. This is just to help fix us so that we can get white on 2 while still leading off on like a Thoughtseize. I'm not sure if 3 is the right number, but we are a Yorion deck, so it probably ends up being fine. There is an option to just cut one of these for Karakas and then maybe get another sideboard slot, but we're going to see how it goes today. I would like to see how useful these Fetid Heaths can actually be in a list like this, because I'm quite like being able to, you know, lead off with a Eumidian Hatchery, get that ticking up, get the Thoughtseize going, but then also be able to play my white drops on turn 2. Alright, that's what we're playing today. Remember to like and subscribe. Become a YouTube member for just $1 a month and you can see all my content early. I highly recommend that, obviously, because I would, but there you go. Anyway, let's get stuck into it and see if we can put someone in the dirt with this Braids Arisen Nightmare at some point. If you've been watching my content and thinking, I'd like to play some Legacy too, then check out 3for1 Trading, one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. They have weekly offers and upload new cards every Wednesday. And it's not just Legacy stuff they sell. They have a beautiful selection of vintage and old school cards too. Support from sponsors like 3for1 Trading make it possible for me to put out videos and help keep Legacy alive, so why not give them some love? Click their link in the description below and use my code COW3 to enjoy free worldwide shipping on your first order over €500. And we're on the draw for the very first game. This hand looks fine. We got Ocelot Pride into other bits and pieces. We can even ramp if we want to, using the White Orchid Phantom on turn 2. Our opponent is known for playing like Elves and Cradle Control style decks. Bayou, some sort of mana dork. It's some sort of mana dork. It's going to be a Dryad Arbor. I'm just going to get this Flagstones going and play this Ocelot Pride. A wasteland, they don't really want to use that on our Flagstones. So they get this wasteland into a creature. When this creature leaves the battlefield, it comes back tapped. It also adds green when it taps as well. They're going after our flagstones, are they? We don't get the ramp effect that we kind of wanted, but that's okay. We've got some choices here. I think I'm going to go Guide of Souls. Then we're going to Solitude, pitching this White Orchid Phantom. Get rid of this Badgermole cub. I'm just going to trigger the Guide of Souls. It's going to let us get in with the Ocelot Pride. So we're going to start making the cat factory. And then next turn we can tutor up some more cats with Starfield Shepherd and keep going wide. Our opponent could do some pretty messed up things with their deck, like through natural order and stuff like that. But I don't think they get to contend with like an infinite supply of cats. And they're pretty shy on removal, so our thing is just going to snowball out of control. They tend to have like Talon Gates and phase stuff out rather than actually removing things. 3 mana, so probably a Green Sun for like another Badgermole or something. Could be for a White of the Reliquary. We could just be natural ordering right now, but it feels like a Green Sun Zenith the way they're putting mana into it. What is your 3-drop going to be? Eladamri. So you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Green tap. Tap 2 untapped creatures, only 3 creatures in total. Reveal a card from your hand or the top of your library. If it's a creature card, put it on the battlefield. Activate only during your turn. I don't really want to draw another land here, so I'm going to go and fetch here. I could get a Surveil land, but I like having the mana available for now. A White Orchid Phantom. Okay, we're going to sandbag this black source, I think. Let's go and get another Plains. Warp this in. We're going to tutor for another cat. We only have 1 basic Plains left in the deck. That's important to remember. Play the other cat. And then we can go to attack. We have 4 energy, so we can attack with this cat and put it into the sky and gain a little bit more life to insulate us against natural order type shenanigans. And the end step, we stack it so this is on the bottom so that we are going to find it easier to get the City's Blessing. Like this. Okay, we got 30 life and a bunch of guys. We can come in for 6 in the air with lifelink next turn. I'm not too bothered about the Safekeeper. We've kind of gone past the stage of interacting with them. We're just going to keep spamming out cats. I'm not sure what their solution to this is. Crater Hoof doesn't beat us, but I think we beat Atraxa with this setup as well, if they go in natural order for that. I'm probably going to get blown up by something I've never seen before. Alright, they're putting something big into play. It is an Atraxa. Again, I think we beat this. I think the cats just overrun it. Okay, so you get a bunch of these. Okay, once upon a time, natural order Badgermole cub. And here is the cub. So gaining life isn't a problem here, so we can definitely trigger all of our cats. I guess what our opponent's going for is trying to do like a big... oh, this is pretty good for us. They're trying to do a big natural order turn, which is reasonable. I think I'm okay to bounce this Traxer. Allows us to gain in for more damages. We can either put a Yorion into hand, or we can put this White Orchid Phantom into play, which can block, which might be handy. We're going to have so many cats at the end of this turn, though. So we should put our opponent to 10 this turn, and then we're going to get many, many cats. We're close to getting Starfield Shepherd to get us another Ocelot Pride, which will get us even more cats. So this will put us up to 36, and then the cats will start coming. So the first cat makes a cat, and then makes more cats. The second cat makes more cats, then more cats. So we're probably going to go up to 50 or so life. But the old Crater Hoof Behemoth can put a lot of damage down. They can sacrifice a land to protect this. That's probably what they're thinking about. If they sacrifice a Dryad Arbor, we then can White Orchid Phantom and try and hit the Dryad Arbor. Possibly take them off of the mana to cast the natural order in the first place. Okay, they sacrificed just a forest. I was kind of hoping they sacrificed the Dryad Arbor. We're still going to gain life because we're going to play a creature. Is there any point blowing any of this up? I can take out the Wasteland. They're just going to get a basic. I don't know how many basics they have. Take out the Wasteland while I'm here. Means that our Karakas is going to force them to sacrifice a land if this game continues for multiple turns. I wonder how much damage our opponent can actually hurl us. It's a lot, because Creative Behemoth is a pretty messed up card, but we're going to have a lot of blockers and a lot of life. So we make 2 cats, and then we make more cats. So up to 37. I was hoping we'd gain another 6 life off these Ocelot Prides, but our opponents saw the line of sacrificing their land. Not really a surprise. Taking a natural order away this Dryad Arbor into Crater Hoof. I haven't done the maths. We'll worry about that in a minute. We might be dead. He's going to be pretty hench. So this is 13. This is 24, 33, 48 damage. Okay, so we're not dead. I've done the maths. Just do it one more time to make sure. 11 plus 9 is 20. 33, 48. So we need to block like 12 damage. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. 8, 9, 10, 11. We can't kill this, unfortunately. 12. We'll just soak up a bunch of damage this way. So we live through this. We're not in a great position, as you probably guessed. But they can't do another big turn like that again. But we don't have the Karakas to bounce this. We've just drawn a land for turns. We can't deploy this. We can attack him with an Ocelot Pride to gain some life to make some blockers. But this will kill us on the backswing. So this has to block the Atraxa. And then we can block 2 things. So we block this and this. We take 3. So we block this and this. We take 3. But we're gaining 4. So we're not dead. I don't really want to show my opponent I'm running black either. If I can avoid it. Let's put this Yorin into our hand. Yeah, not drawing a creature that turn was obviously disastrous for us. We should lose this game now. There are builds of this deck that don't run Natural Order, which is wild to me, because the deck's quite low power, in my opinion, the Cradle Control deck. And putting something like Natural Order of just having this huge I win button feels like the right thing to do to me. Another Badgermole Cub, sure. My thoughts on Badgermole Cub are that it's very much okay. Like, it can do some kind of good stuff, but then the good stuff in comparison to what other people are doing by spending that sort of resources in Legacy, it's kind of pretty middling to me. Like, I think it's fine and it's going to see play in these decks and continue to be a good part for these decks. But I think it's because this deck already exists and can slot it in rather than it being worth building a deck around, if that makes sense. How much are we taking? It's going to be a lot. If it's just the Cradle Hoof, okay. So we go to blocks. So this has to block here or we die. This is going to put us to 5 life. So we have to block this to survive. What is more important to me? Getting this Guide of Souls going or this Ocelot Pride going? We block this. Take 2 but gain 3. We could double block this and kill this to take something off the board. We only lose 1 piece. We gain 3, 4 life. This will put us to 1. I don't know how we win the game on that life. I think we'll just scoop it up. We can try and finagle our way through, but what are we going to draw that's going to help us out of this spot? We don't have Wrath of God. Okay. They got some creatures that might be large, so these might be useful. I don't hate the Karakas here. It's fine. Disruptor Flute is actively pretty useful here. So we've got potentially 5 things I'm kind of interested in. Is this the matchup where Thoughtseize shines? It takes Natural Order. That's the thing. All of our removal is good. Our early creature pressure is very important. I think all of this stuff seems very sensible. Souls of the Lost is okay. It's certainly on the weaker end of what our deck's doing. I think Braids is probably a little bit too slow for what we're trying to achieve here. So we're just going to get these exercises in. And we get a Disruptor Flute. And then do we want any more of this other stuff? I don't think so. We have so many ways to just completely steamroller our opponent here. I guess Voice of Victory is not that exciting. We can probably cut one of those for a Disruptor Flute. We can shut down Why the Reliquary is the main thing I want to name with this. But yeah, so we can set up Overlord of the Balemurk loops where we just keep getting back Solitude, which is just going to ruin our opponent completely. We've got a very good early aggressive plan, and if we just don't get Natural Ordered, we'll be okay. Well, I'll keep this. We're going to begin with the Eumidian Hatchery so we can start ticking this up. So that when we blow it up with our White Orchid Phantom, it's good. Ooh, the Cradle Hoof in hand isn't where they want to be. I think Cradle Hoof is like the only way they realistically beat us. If we take the Cradle Hoof, we never have to worry about it. If we take the Once Upon a Time, they might not have any mana. We could try and cheese them out with this Once Upon a Time. Like, we want to be removing their creatures anyway. They definitely should have cast that Once Upon a Time in response to us Thoughtseizing them, though. Because they desperately need a land, otherwise they don't get to play any spells. If they play a land here... Okay, they played a land that doesn't do anything. Good news for us. I'm just going to play out this Voice of Victory, get this going. We want them to play a 1 toughness creature that we can blow up with Orcish Bowmasters. There's going to be a Green Sun Zenith. It's going to go and get them a Dried Arbor. They might then tap the guy's Cradle for another Green Sun Zenith. They did not. It's in. Let's blow up the Dried Arbor. Let's swing in for 3 because of the Mobilize on the Voice of Victory. Now we can go and get Surveil land with our Marsh Flats if we wish. Any 1 toughness creatures are going to get nailed by this Bowmaster. I'm not going to White Orchid Phantom away this Cradle. I think our plan is to keep their creatures off the board. And I'm quite interested in blowing up our Eumidian Hatchery and just getting a bunch of extra power and just putting this game to bed while our opponent's still fumbling with their sort of wonky early draw. Lair of the Hydra. They're not deploying the other Green Sun Zenith. So they probably don't have access to another Dryad Arbor. Let's get the Backstreet in. I'll take another land, I think. That's fine. We just attack with its squad here. I think it's better to save the Bowmasters to ping damage than to force through a little bit here. So they're on 12. I could go and get 4 more power into play. But this is kind of awkward. It means I have to cast another spell right now. So I could Starfield Shepherd and White Orchid Phantom. Okay, let's warp this in. What do we get here? Might just be the Guide of Souls. Because then we can trigger quite a bit of energy on the next turn. I think I'd like to get 4 power into play, please. We definitely want black that can't be wasted away from us, so I will get this. And then we get ourselves a lot of power here. So we've got 6 in the air, that's half our opponent's life total. And we've got another, 3, 4, 5, 6 ready to go. Badger Mole Cub. So this is going to do something interesting. It's going to turn the Cradle into a creature, so it's actually tapped for 2, but then it's also going to tap for 3 because of the Badger Mole Cub ability. So this is where Badger Mole Cub can look pretty good. So you can Zenith for 2 and get like a white. Or there's anything for 1 with 1 mana left over. That suggests to me they're not going to use that 1, but we don't know what's in their hand. Okay, they're probably going to untap this Cradle now. Yep, this is going to be a good turn. Very tricksy. So it's going to tap for 3 again. So they could get like Natural Order is probably the best thing they can do. And get an Atraxa, which is pretty good. I think Badger Mole Cub kind of shines in like slower, somewhat grindier matchups where you can make use of grinding with like getting these and getting them back again and doing stuff for them. And I'm not entirely sure that's what Legacy is about right now. Like the best deck in the format is Omnitel, which is just smashing people up pretty early doors. Right, so they do have the best case scenario for them. They get an Atraxa. What are we going to see here? Tyvar the Pummeler. What does this do? Tap an untapped creature you control. Tyvar gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. 5 mana. Creature you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures. Okay, so this is just kind of like another copy of Craterhoof, but different. What do they take? So they took Verdant Catacombs, which they've played, so we'll scrub that one out. They took Badger Mole Cub, so none of the other creatures. They took Grist, Snuff Out, Green Sun Zenith. Okay, just got them all now. So this will allow them to deploy another Badger Mole Cub and also snuff out one of our creatures. But snuffing out our creature feels awkward, given the life totals. We do need to get through this Atraxa, though. Are they going to go and get the Sylvan Safekeeper? Yeah. So I played a version of this deck that I don't think had Craterhoof beam off and it didn't feel very good. But our opponent's build looks much better than what we played a few weeks ago. Ajani. Taking Sacrifice to Cradle. That kind of just does its thing. We can Guide of Souls into Bowmasters or Guide of Souls into Ajani. We've got the Craterhoof in hand that we could have taken early on, but we tried to strand our opponent. Now we're going to lose the Craterhoof. Okay, I think it's Guide of Souls, and I think we block with an insect token. And so how much mana is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, 6, 7. 1 more mana is 8, which is Craterhoof. So if we ping this guy down, they have to sacrifice the land. So they sacrifice this, which is no longer a creature anymore. So this will reduce 1 mana from them, whatever will they do with it. Okay, I think we're right to try and curtail their mana somewhat. Ping down the Safekeeper. They will sacrifice something to save it, but whatever they sacrifice will reduce their mana. I'm just sacrificing a Bayi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So they don't presently have enough to combo us with a Craterhoof. They play Badger Mole Cub and it's cost neutral. It costs them 2 mana, but it makes this produce 2 more because both Badger Mole Cubs will trigger. They found a land. It's another Cub. Putting it on the Hydra. This gives them another creature actually. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they do have enough to Craterhoof, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they can still Craterhoof here. And I don't think we beat that. Yeah, I think we just scoot that one up. So we could have played this game differently and just Thoughtseize and took the Craterhoof early on, and we never have to worry about Craterhoof beating us, which is kind of the thing that beats us. I did say it's the way they're going to beat us. Now, Natural Order was the way they actually beat us. So like the Balemurk Cub stuff is kind of interesting, but what we're actually losing to is the Atraxa and the Cradle Heath, as it always was with Cradle Control in my opinion. Alright, on to round number 2. We're on the play, we'll show him a little Yorion. Now what? Turn 1 Cat. Our mana situation isn't the best, but our opponent is unlikely to just immediately wasteland us whilst we have an Ocelot Pride in play, because then this gets to start doing its thing. And if we have more lands in hand, then our opponent can be in trouble. Alright, if they force and then wasteland us, then they're okay. But then they're trading 3 for 2, but obviously hitting our mana base is pretty scary for us. They didn't hit the mana base, and there was much rejoicing. We don't know what our opponent's playing. It could be Omnitel, it could be Reanimator, it could be Dimmer Tempo, it could be Esper, or Grixis Control. These are all decks floating around in the meta right now. Choices, choices, choices. We can drop a Bowmasters, but if they are playing a Tempo deck that has their own Bowmasters, that goes really poorly for us. I think we go and fetch ourselves a Scrubland and just smash down a Voice of Victory. And then we know everything's going to resolve moving forward, so we can mitigate things. We also have a Daze as well. I was going to say we also have the Voice of Victory Braids combo, where we can make them sacrifice a creature every turn, but that requires us to attack with the Voice of Victory every turn, which isn't always a viable strategy. But if they don't have creatures, it's just like drain life and drawing us cards. They didn't play the land we knew about, so they might be getting a fetch land here, a Surveil land, sorry. Just Guide of Souls, just on its own. Or we could Guide of Souls Haliya. That gets us an energy and another life, but do we care about that? I think we're going to Bowmasters this turn cycle. I really want to be able to double spell. We don't know if they're going to have Bowmasters of their own. I'm not thinking our opponent is the Omnitel build, the blue-black Omnitel, because of the days, because they can't always run that many dazes because they're trying to resolve 3-drops. So now it looks like they might have a Bowmasters over there. Now we're kind of punished for not playing anything out. Fetid Heath. Okay, this does allow us to double spell. Another Forcible. Pitching Thassa's Oracle. So we're on Doomsday. Okay, if we're on Doomsday, they might be on the Tempo build as a thing. So let's blow up this Undersea Sewers and try and hamstring their mana a little bit. Because they are a mono blue deck with a black combo card. Are they going to fatal push my guy? I didn't think so. I don't think this deck plays fatal push. I don't know if they're going to be running the Tempo package involving things like the Murktide region, sometimes Baragos and Bowmasters. They'll definitely have Tamiyo. Pretty much all the builds of Doomsday run Tamiyo because it's just a really busted card. We can start chewing away our opponent's lands, or we can deploy a Bowmaster around a daze. We could Haliya here, and then that also gains us a life off of the Bowmasters. That's pretty good. Swap this in. If our opponent is on the Tempo build with Bowmasters of their own, it's obviously annoying. But that's just the way life is sometimes. I think we need to pressure our opponent because they're a Doomsday deck and they can just win out of nowhere. Let's ping our opponent's face. We'll get a little life off of the Haliya. Then when it dies at the end of turn, we're going to gain ourselves a card. So we put the Warp on the bottom. Just a good practice to do. Overlord of the Balemurk. First time seeing this bad boy. Thoughtseize. We're going to lose our Overlord of the Balemurk. They might take Braids because it's the weird card and we can just start turning one of our lands into Strip Mine. But I think Balemurk is the correct one. Alright. We win the game. I guess there might be a situation where they don't think they can Doomsday and get through what we have. Okay. I would like Disruptor Flute for the card Doomsday, please. Exercise is okay if they're bringing in like the Baragos and Murktide plan. We kind of already have that covered with Source to Plowshares and the Solitudes. So we've got 7 removal spells. I think that's enough. We just need a couple of trims here. I'm kind of interested in Braids as a way of being able to grind through their mana base. That's kind of unexpected for them. Voice of Victory is very good. We're obviously keeping Phelia. Bowmaster is very good. We could trim on some of the removal, but so many of these decks are just pivoting into creatures. I think we have to respect that. I think I'll trim a Braids. I think it is the cute card in the deck. But we're still going to leave one in because people want to see it. And maybe it's Souls of the Lost. We still have 4 White Orchid Phantoms to blow up our Eumidian Hatcheries. I think that's a reasonable amount. And we have the Braids. So that's 5. Yeah, that's fine. I think the Souls is better than the Braids here. But we want to see what Braids is like. I can't just be like, oh, let's just get rid of that all the time. I want to see how this pans out. Another option you can do is bring in null rods to try and slow down the Lion's Eye Diamond hands. But if they see the null rod, they're just going to do it differently anyway. No black source. This is just pressure. If we hit a black source, this hand is really good. Like, really good. But if we don't hit a black source, what are we doing? Very little. I think we should mulligan and be disciplined. Alright, this is very similar to the previous hand. We don't have the Thoughtseize, we still have the double Bowmaster, which is really strong. I think we're going to keep this and put back the Witch Enchanter. And then we can just go Guide of Souls into more friends. A Tamiyo. That gets checked somewhat by the Bowmasters. Not completely. The Phelia can also blink out clues, which is irritating for them. Let's get this Scrubland in. I have seen some Wasteland builds of Doomsday lately. I'm not really a fan of those. I don't think we get to respect it when one of our lands is a Scrubland anyway. I think I'd rather just fetch double Scrubland and just make sure we can't be wasted off of a colour. So now we can play Phelia or... Oh, we'll leave the fetch land because this can be a Surveil land later on. So you've got Phelia or Bowmasters. So this way we're not going to have a turn we just pass through and our opponent does nothing, so that we don't really want to play out our Bowmasters or whatever, because we can just dump the Phelia instead. Get the dog in. They might crack a clue token to play around Bowmasters in response. Or just at the end of the turn. I think that's perfectly reasonable. They might try and crack the clue that we blink out though. Shoulder's Edict. Okay. Yeah, that works. I think Bowmaster is the bigger prize than ploughing the Tamiyo here. So we're going to lead off on Bowmasters to play around a daze. Ping our opponent's face, shut off these clues. And now we're going to get Scrubland and we're going to plough this Tamiyo, I think. Do we need to plough the Tamiyo? If they're on a fair plan, we're going to want to plough something like a Murktide. We kind of already have the Tamiyo covered with the Bowmasters. So I'm not actually going to plough the Tamiyo just to play around the Baraghoists of the world. Because we're not being a Baraghoist with what's left in our hand here. So we do need to respect that that's the thing they can drop. Same with Murktide. Cavern of Souls. Are you going to name Wizard or are you going to name Dragon? Or Goyf? I think they name Wizard because they don't need this for the fixing. I'm not really sure it matters what they name here unless we start grinding through all their lands. Which is an angle we can do. It's just a very long and convoluted thing, which isn't really what happens. Rogue. Is that Oppo Agent? You can continue to muster clues. And we're just going to hopefully Bowmasters them out. There's got to be Opposition Agent. A land here is pretty good. It was not a land. I'll attack with just the Orc army, I think. An Orcish Bowmaster, you say? I would like to fire in my own Orcish Bowmasters to make sure there's never a time where they can brainstorm happily. We got a Force of Will pitching the Murktide Regent that we did just play around. So now we have to plough the Tamiyo. We don't particularly care about the Bowmaster as a body, and we don't really care about the Bowmaster's effect. I wonder if this was just to trick us with the cabin. If we just, let's just name a weird creature type, make our opponent think about something we don't have. I really like that as a play, if you don't need it for the fixing. Like a nice little extra next level. Like, do we crack into this? We probably have to respect it being an opposition agent. Okay, we've got these clue tokens, and we got a brainstorm. So it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle for us, I imagine. I'm going to take one from the Bowmaster. That's not really what I'm about. Let's get some White Orchid Phantom goodness going. Overlord of the Balemurk. Okay, I'm going to play you instead, because you are way better. I get to get back any of these creatures. I could get back a Phelia and blink the Overlord, or I could get back this Bowmasters, which scuffers our opponent's main plan. Which I think is what I'm going to do here. This is one of the best cards in the matchup, so I would very much like to have access to it. We can also take out their pressure. I really like Overlord of the Balemurk. I think it's just a pretty well-designed card for, in terms of playing in Legacy at least. Drawing a card with a clue, and drawing another card with a clue. They're getting these out of the way before the Bowmasters comes in and wrecks their day. That makes a lot of sense to me. This Overlord can eventually get back the Phelia and do some stuff later on, but I think step one is making sure they can't draw additional cards. Goodbye, enemy Bowmaster. Now we are the ones with pressure. I really just want to draw a land so we can cast 2 spells in a turn, please. We can Disrupt a Flute on Doomsday, or we can Disrupt a Flute on Thassa's Oracle after they cast a Doomsday. But they have a lot of land, they might be able to get through that. We've got us Undersea Sewers, surveying away what? A Brainstorm. Makes sense, we have a Bowmasters in play. That suggests they don't have an answer for the Bowmasters in hand. Is this going to be a Baraghoist? It is going to be the Barragoyf. Now we can chump block that for a turn. Not ideal, but we can get there. Arid Mesa, we get to double spell. That's nice for us. Get this White Orchid Phantom in. Just blow up one of your lands. Let's crack this. Go and get ourselves a Scrubland. And we'll pass. So you can put the Orc army under the bus. The Overlord is slowly ticking down. It kind of does a similar thing to Barragoyf in terms of just attacking and putting a card in our hand, which I like. There's no artifacts at present in graveyard, so I just want to play this in the second main phase. But if they counterspell this to make this big enough that we can't just double first strike it down, that's actually a really big problem. Alright, let's do this. This would be a really heads-up counterspell for our opponent. It does free us up ourselves to resolve other spells. But making this a 4-5, they don't know how important this is. They don't know that we've got another one of these White Orchid Phantoms. A daze. Okay, we'll not pay. Getting a daze value this late on, pretty good for our opponent. Flagstones. So we can play out the Flagstones. We can go... I don't think we can destroy our opponent's lands. They've got one swamp left in their deck. But if we start Yorioning, we can blow up loads of their lands, maybe. How useful is just getting a Surveil land here is the question. We could blow up our land and get Surveil land, or we can blow up one of their underground seas. Next turn, which gets in their swamp. Next turn, we just double strip mine them with our Yorion. That sounds like something I'm interested in. I'm willing to do that. Put this into our hand. I'm not attacking... Well, if they have Bowmasters, this dies anyway. They have shown up... They have named Rogue here, which is kind of... Brazen Borrower. Oh, they're playing it as a creature. Interesting. Okay, I'll take my 1 damage here. They're going to get hit in with Barragoyf, I think. But our plan is to just outvalue them because we've got various engines popping off here. Overlord is about to do its thing. If we can find a Solitude, we can nail this Barragoyf. I'm glad we left in all of our removal spells. I've got 1 card in hand. Is any good? Attacking with just the Barragoyf. I'm going to take it. I'm not in love with taking this amount of damage and then getting potentially another card. It's a Murktide, so they get to play a big Murktide. Okay. But we get to play Yorion this turn, unless they've drawn like a Daze or something. And then we're punished for not ramping ourselves out. Big Murktide. What was the last card in your hand? Braids is interesting, actually. I don't think that's what I'm about right now. If you've got a Daze as your last card in hand, that's going to suck. Fatal Push on our poor little guy. Alright, we're going to be doing some chump blocking, I think. We get to ping this down. We get to blow up one of your lands. And we get to Balemurk. What do we get here? None of these are the actual card I want. Although we do have Braids coming next turn. I'm going to take this White Orchid Phantom and just grind our opponent out of the game that way. So we can keep chump blocking with White Orchid Phantom. And we know they don't have any more lands at this point. This has been a pretty cool game, I think. Right, they drew a Wasteland. So we have perfect information here. How much damage do we need to take here? I'm going to block here and block here. And then the Balemurk can attack and either get us back a... We'll pop our graveyard out. There's a lot of stuff going on in the graveyard here. Another White Orchid Phantom. That's obviously pretty interesting here, isn't it? Let's go to attacks first. This wants to attack for sure. I'm not really sure about these other guys. I think we're just grinding them out. That is the plan here. I guess we take a Guide of Souls. We go Guide of Souls. I think I'm going to stick with the White Orchid Phantom plan. If our opponent doesn't get to casting spells, they're not going to be able to win the game. A Thoughtseize. They're going to take the Braids, which is a way that we can crunch these creatures. But again, we can just get anything back because we have Overlord of the Balemurk. If they keep a guy back on blocks, we don't get to Overlord of the Balemurk. But we do just get to play Braids and sack our Guide of Souls. Okay, I think we just chump here. And are we chumping here? I'm going to take 8 this time. We can also chump with Yorion and rebuy it with Overlord of the Balemurk for a really busted turn later on. We draw a land here. We did not draw a land. We did draw a Solitude, which is really good. What would I like? Something that we're going to exile, so we're not going to miss it. We've got multiple Ajanis. Let's just get rid of an Ajani. We could have attacked with everything here, to be fair. Thinking about it. Just overly cautious. Our opponent has no cards in hand, so we don't really need to be overly cautious. So we'll exile... I think it's the Barragoyf here. Then we go black, black, white. Get the Braids in. So they get to choose if they sacrifice this or not. I think I'm going to sacrifice this Flagstones. So they can sacrifice a land or we can draw a card. We drew a card. Shadowy Backstreet, get a little bit of extra value going. Eumidian Hatchery, don't really want that right now. Wasteland. Okay. I was always going to be able to find a target here, but it's not really what our opponent wants. I think I'll just block with this White Orchid Phantom for now. The fact this is a May is really annoying. A Solitude. Okay, so we can pitch this to this. Blow up the Murktide. And gain a lot of life here. Alright, let's scoop it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack with everything, bring back the White Orchid Phantom, blow up our opponent's Underground Sea. Next time we can blow up this, and then our opponent basically doesn't have mana sources to win the game with. Okay, a bit of a grindy one, but we certainly showcase some of the grindier elements of our deck, and I quite like this build, to be honest. Let's go to round number 3. This one is fine. The mana situation has me a little bit worried, but we have a Solitude we can pop off early if we need to. We do have the mana to sort of get in and start casting spells, and we've got some good spells to cast. I think Ajani might be the tester spell, and then we can get our other bits. Okay, we're just going to get Thoughtseize. Tester spells isn't really necessarily going to work unless our opponent's really worried about pressure, because they might just counter the first thing we play so they can have their life total instead of waiting to counter the thing they want. But we'll see what they take here and if we can discern what they're worried about from what they take. They took our Ajani, so maybe they are worried about pressure. Interesting. I need this Boggart Trawler. It does have text in the matchup sometimes as a creature. I'm going to play as Arid Mesa. That means we can't be wastelanded off of our turn 2 play. And we can get a little bit of value off of the Surveil land, maybe find another land. I don't really want to burn a Starfield Shepherd to find a plains. That always feels underwhelming. It's a Tamiyo. We have an answer for this. It's costly, but it's an answer. Let's get the Backstreets in. Thoughtseize. That is a very good one, isn't it? I'll put that on top. I think we want to play around days as well. So let's Thoughtseize first. Then we can work out what we want to pitch to Solitude based on what our opponent's hand is. Murktide, Brainstorm, Days, Wasteland. We could take the Brainstorm and Solitude the Tamiyo. The problem with that is that then they get to get Murktide Regent popping in a while. But not for a little while, actually. Let's take the Brainstorm. I think Starfield Shepherd ends up being better for us most of the time than the Voice of Victory. We've kind of already gone past the Voice of Victory stage of the game here. I'm going to pitch this. They can daze this, we can pay. The Overlord of the Balemurk can then just pick up the Solitude again. Need a land to play around days. Obviously we have the Boggart Trawler. But I wouldn't mind using this to wipe the graveyard to stop Murktide Regent coming in. But again, we can just Overlord the Balemurk, get back to Solitude, mess our opponent up. They'd probably Surveil, put basically anything into the graveyard here. Orcish Bowmasters. Make it easier on the casting for the Murktide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess they could Wasteland as well, which is pretty good. It's only going to be a 5/5, so we're going to have a little bit of time. But this is pretty much our opponent out of action. They've got the days and like a mystery card. I'm going to play this tapped. Next turn, we can Overlord, get back the Solitude, kill the Murktide. And then we're ticking down to Balemurk just winning the game. Now, if our opponent plays an additional threat we have to worry about right now, we're in trouble. If they draw a Force of Will, that can scupper that whole plan. Lots of stuff can go wrong. We've put ourselves in a position that is okay. Eumidian Hatchery. I'm somewhat hesitant to be doing stuff with this just now. Let's get this Overlord in. Okay, so let's get back our Solitude. I'm going to Solitude our opponent's upkeep, I think. We're playing around the days that we know about. I think if they had a counterspell, they'd burn it on the... Why would you not counter the Overlord? I don't understand that play. Because this is getting back the Solitude anyway. And you just get to take the other piece out of play for us. Well, it certainly was something I wasn't expecting and beat me up a little bit. But we end up with more material than we should have. Oh, interesting. A Solitude. Let's get a companion. Play this Eumidian Hatchery. And I guess we're going to Solitude again. Losing our Yorion to do that sucks. But dying to Murktide Regent sucks more. Another Force of Will? Are you kidding me, opponent? There's no reason they shouldn't have countered this then. That's wild. Well, when you've got it, you got it, opponent. Fair enough. Sometimes I'm the person who's got it all, and it feels unfair. So I can't really complain. Ajani doesn't do anything because they just kill us in the sky. Wowzers trousers. Yep. They're pretty good after they went hellbent there. Okay. Some sort of like fair, styly deck. I think we just want like a couple of Exorcises. Maybe another Karakas so we can pressure Tamiyo in a different way. Honestly, I don't like the Braids very much. I know it's cool and it's interesting, but I'm not sure this is a card that I... Because it says may, if it forced them to sacrifice a thing and then if they couldn't, we get to draw a card, that would be way better. But the fact that each opponent may sacrifice a permanent of their choice, it's just not where I want to be. And we need to get rid of one more of these things. Probably just an Ajani. It's kind of like a little middling. I'm not going to board in ley lines to try and shut down their bits and pieces. We've got some powerful cards here. I'm going to keep this one. This has got a lot of grind potential. I think I just lead off on a plains. We also have basics, so we're not going to get randomly jacked up by a wasteland, which was delaying us by a turn in the previous game, which meant that we had to sort of wait a turn to play around the days, which gave our opponent the turn to draw the Force of Wills. What do you take here? Because the Overlord gets back wherever you take. So it's kind of irrelevant. They could take one Balemurk and counter the second Balemurk. That is a viable strategy here. If they take a Balemurk, I think that might be what they're up to. Okay, over to us. Are we just playing around days? We don't know if we're drawing another mana source though. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play the Phelia in our opponent's turn. If we had another land in hand, then I would probably just play the Guide of Souls this turn. But we don't know if we're going to have that other mana source, so we're going to need to start playing stuff into this, so we don't get beaten by the tempo plays of our opponents. A Dauthi Voidwalker. I will respond with a Phelia. If you counterspell this, it goes into the graveyard rather than the void. This does make Overlord the Balemurk a lot worse, because this puts cards into the graveyard, then you return a card from your graveyard. It's not like the one like Gyruda and Baragoyf, which put stuff in, that mills stuff over. Oh, I got Snuff out as well. So yeah, so the other ones, they mill stuff over, then you return something among the milled cards. This returns something from the graveyard. So it's quite a different kettle of fish. Okay, we just get the most power we can get in, so we're going to be racing this Dauthi Voidwalker. Now, they punch themselves in the face with that Snuff out. The backside of Ajani isn't the best. Like, Voice of Victory does help turn it into something a bit better, but we're an 80 card deck, so we can't rely on that. Yeah, we're going to take some damages, but we can apply pressure better than our opponent because our deck is full of pressure thing, whereas they've got a lot of like cantrips and stuff where we're just playing a bunch of dudes, really. Let's go and get a Plains, play out this Guide of Souls. Let's bash in for 3, and then we have Bowmasters ready to go. I would rather use it to ping off like a Bowmasters or a Brazen Borrower that our opponent deploys, rather than just throwing it in willy-nilly. It's going to 9. Is this going to be the Brazen Borrower turn? No, we're just getting a Surveil land. So it might, I think if they had a Borrower, they'd probably just bounce the cat token first and then deploy it. They don't want a Force of Will. This game is about losing to what's on the board for them. In comes the Dauthi. We take 3, go to 13. We are very much winning this race. This is 3, 4, this is 5, 6 damage. So we can turn this into a 2-turn clock. But it's kind of a 2-turn clock anyway if this resolves because we get to ping. I think we're more inclined to hold this up to interact. If they tap out a Bowmaster this turn, just a Kaito, a hard cast Kaito. Okay? Getting an emblem for the ninjas. You got it. Let's chuck in a Bowmasters. Quite a telegraph Bowmasters, to be honest, but they didn't have anything. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we can play any creature, we didn't play a creature. That is a frustrating one. So we can go to attacks. This is got 5 loyalty. Okay, I think we attack everything at Kaito. I think I will Thoughtseize my opponent here. We're still winning this race. Alright, we win the game and we're going to go to a third game. Do I want Disruptor Flute to name Kaito? It's a good card. If we got Dauthi, maybe I'll trim an Overlord and just get 1 Disruptor Flute in there. Does this kill Planeswalkers? No. We don't have like an out way of killing Planeswalkers. So maybe we should just be getting rid of another Overlord and just getting this in. Oh, I don't really want... like it's only good against Kaito, right? I don't really want to draw 2. I think we'll just keep 1 in the deck because then we know we've got 1 somewhere in the deck. And if we draw it, we don't have to worry about drawing another blank. Okay, we've got a hatchery game plan. Because this is an additional cost to cast, this means that they can't counter our hatchery. Now, if they have a Dauthi Voidwalker, that does counter the hatchery. But that is a different problem there. I don't... okay, we can just Karakas it. I'm happy to do that. If our opponent wants to spend their turn replaying it and then casting a Brainstorm the same turn and getting a Planeswalker, that is awkward. I guess maybe that's another reason we might want to have access to a second Disruptor Flute. But it doesn't allow I have a Brainstorm here. They can continue to tax our Karakas if they wish. There's a Wasteland. We're going to lose a Karakas here. We are indeed. Let's play out the Flagstones. Get a little friend in. You going to daze this? They are. Sure. 1-for-1 trades favour us because we start with an 8-card hand. And our deck has more card advantage than our opponents. They have selection. We have actual card advantage. We do have card disadvantage in things like Solitude. A Swords 2 Plowshares. How important is it for me... I think we're just going to plow this. Give them 0 life as well. Play around the days. Because I don't really know what I want to pitch the Solitude just yet. And if we get into a situation where we have enough mana that we can just hardcast the Solitude, then we're going to be laughing. Or I guess we're going to be floated out and miserable. Okay, that's a card I'm interested in dealing with, because that shuts down our Eumidian Hatchery plan. Voice of Victory, you say? That is one our opponent will have to interact with on the stack, or not at all. If they counterspell this, on the stack I will Solitude the Doughty Voidwalker, so that our Voice of Victory goes to the graveyard for later. I'm going to bin off, I think I want to bin off the Ajani. So playing around days, so we put Evoke on the bottom, and then we get this. So we kill it, the Solitude ends up in the graveyard, the Voice of Victory ends up in the graveyard. Then we can do some Phelia stuff soon. We don't really have anything to blink with the Phelia just yet, but we have a lot of permanents in our graveyard. So this Souls of the Lost is going to do some work. Hymn to Turak. Well, I take it all back. Let's put this into our hand. They might have discard, but we could also draw a land next turn. We're going to be using our Surveil land this turn cycle, so maybe that finds us our 5th mana source. We just get a big guy in, and that's reasonable. That Hymn to Turak was savage, though. Gotta love Hymn to Turak. Brainstorm. A card from a set that a lot of people think was really, really bad. And I think it's a bad set, but I don't think it's as bad as people make out. There's some absolutely gorgeous art and story stuff in that set. Anyway, I digress. Let's Shadowy Backstreet. Orchid Bowmasters. That is a fine top deck. We know our opponent has Bowmasters, but I'm going to play it now so that we can get around any sort of cantrips they have. If they just immediately Bowmasters, then sure, you drew better than me in 2 of our 3 games. Good job. But they did not have it. I don't know how readily we're going to be able to turn this into something, so I'm not going to waste life in the hatchery this turn cycle. We've got Overlord the Balemurk and another Hymn to Turak. You got it, boss. And Marsh Flats. Okay, I'll play this one out. We'll attack. It kind of looks like we're winning, but there's a lot of cards in our opponent's hand still. Okay, the 3rd land. Are we just going to see the parade of Barragoyfs that kills us now? Boy, howdy do I hate Barragoyf. Thoughtseize. I guess we'll take a look. Is it just more Barragoyfs? There's another Barragoyf. We'll take that at least. We're going to be chump blocking with this Orc Army token. And then we need to draw an Overlord of the Balemurk, or a removal spell is obviously fine. Or we can draw into the Orchid Phantom and blow up our hatchery and give ourselves enough blockers that we're fine for a while. We have Potent Information. They do have a Brainstorm, which can turn into any other card, but at quite the cost. Are you kidding me, deck? Are you kidding me? I guess we play this out. We don't have another Surveil land. I wouldn't actually mind a 2nd Surveil land in our deck, to be honest. Am I blocking with his Bowmasters? I don't think so. We can't afford to unlock this Brainstorm. We also don't currently afford to let this Barragoyf do its thing. I think it's just bad all round. It left a card on top. We're just getting Bowmastered here. We're losing our Bowmaster. The illusion of choice. This comes in for 4. And now we have a choice. Let's see what this mills over. No creatures. No additional types. If we don't crack these lands, we get an additional draw step. They're brainstorming now. I don't think you need to brainstorm right now. I think you just want to brainstorm in your in your next turn. Or in response to a Bowmasters we have. Jesus Christ. A Tamiya. Wowzers trousers. I guess our opponent just wanted it more. There's another land. Well, we've got one more turn. So they're going to gain at least 1 card this turn from the Tamiya. They could gain a 2nd one from the Barragoyf, and all of a sudden, it's all just falling apart. These are 2 cards that I dislike a great deal, and we're getting absolutely slaughtered by them. Not paying life into the hatchery is buying us additional time. They didn't draw a card off the Barragoyf, that's something, I guess. Cracking their clue token. We do get another turn if we don't crack the Marsh Flats. Wasteland. Please wasteland my Eumidian Hatchery. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know what you go after here. I don't think it matters. Yeah, whatever. A land is a land. 1 card in their hand. Alright, let's gain a life. And have a chump blocker for a turn. We did not gain lots of life, so we don't get to draw a card here. We're clinging on, but we are getting absolutely bodied by these monsters. Cracking the clue now in case they draw a removal spell. Then we go under the bus with the Haliya. One next deck. A Thoughtseize. It's not the one, is it? I think our journey in this particular round of Magic the Gathering is coming to an end. They have a 2nd Surveil land? No, I can't remember if they brainstorm. They might, no, because they milled over the cards of the Barragoyf, so they're just getting a land out of their deck. I don't know if I like that. I think I'd rather just hold it up for a Surveil Land personally, shuffle off of a Brainstorm or a Ponder. Right, is this Baragorth going to find anything? No. At least the Baragorth's not drawing them cards. It is gaining them life and ruining our day. But this is not going to be a game that's won by small increments, most likely. It's going to be won by large measures, I would expect. Alright, this is our last turn to draw something good. We did not draw something good. If this Thoughtseize resolves, we lose the game. Okay. A lot of back and forth in this one, but we end up losing the game in the end. Tamiyo and Baragorth are pretty messed up Magic the Gathering cards. Alright, on to round number 4. Welcome to round 4. We've got a reasonable hand here. We can keep this. Depending on what our opponent does on turn 1 depends on if we want to Thoughtseize on 1 or not. If we Thoughtseize on 1 from the hatchery, we don't get to Guide of Souls. So I'm more inclined to go Guide of Souls into Thoughtseize Guide of Souls. So I would like to sort of get an idea what our opponent is doing. Just to ponder. Our opponent could be playing some sort of Show and Tell deck, which means we might have to send the Thoughtseize in because they could just kill us on turn 2. Bauble. Okay. This is going to be like a Delver deck, so I'm going to deploy the Guide of Souls. That Mishra's Bauble was kind of big news for us. Let's get this Guide of Souls in. We can Thoughtseize Guide of Souls next turn. We've got 2 removal spells, which is exactly where we want to be versus a Delver matchup. And then eventually we've got Yorion to take over the game and be bigger than a bunch of their things, whilst the Plows can kill the things that it isn't bigger than. I suppose Corey Steelcutter could be a little bit scary, but we do have a couple of Witch Enchanters, I think, which can deal with it. It's just going to be a red source. There we go. We're going to see a Corey Steelcutter, I think, this turn. Oh, just a Lightning Bolt. Sure. I want to trade 1-for-1 with you, so let's keep doing that. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent first, and then we can deploy the second Guide of Souls. This feels like the sort of matchup we're going to be pretty good into. Brainstorm, Daze, Force of Will. I want to take the Brainstorm here. I could take the Daze and then play a creature, and they have to Force of Will it. But they kind of have 2 blanks in hand already. I think just taking the Brainstorm makes the most sense here. Their hand is pretty bad. There's a Wasteland. They could just smash this off now, sure. Like, it's going to get us more counters later on, so it makes sense to just turn it into a 1-1 instead. Doesn't feel amazing for our opponent, of course. Get Guide of Souls in. Do you want to Daze this? Force of Will pitching Daze. Be my guest. I will take these 2-for-1 trades all the time. If they ever find a big threat like a Murktide, which is what they're kind of looking for at this point, then we have that covered already. I think we're okay getting a Shadowy Backstreet. Probably means that this Marsh Flats has to get a Scrubland. I don't think we need this. Attack. I think the plan is just to keep up the pressure using this Ajani. So we've got 4 damage every turn, so that's a 4-turn clock. It might be less if our opponent has more fetches and things. They've binned over a Delver, so they are in the market for a big threat. They're not willing to just have like one of their turn 1 threats because it's not going to be good enough at this point. I agree with our opponent's choice to bin this. A Brainstorm. That's a strong one. Ponder, so they're having to shuffle it using the Ponder rather than having a fetch land, which is good for us. They're not getting maximum value out of either of those cantrips. We don't have another Surveil Land, so I'm not going to crack this. Okay, I think we're going to attack here. I believe this White Orchid Phantom is going to just be a sinkhole here. I think they have 1 island in their entire deck, and it's in play. If we blow up this Volcanic, this means if they bounce the Thundering Falls for a daze at any point, it has to come in tapped. So they can get that value from it of getting the Surveil, but they're going to be losing the tempo, and at the moment, tempo is how they're losing this game because we've got a bunch of pressure on them, and they don't really have anything going on. This feels like we get to be like a Death and Taxes deck, which is traditionally something you want to play into these sort of tempo decks. But we get a lower curve, which means that we don't get cheesed by the tempo decks easily either. I could source the Plowshares this right now, or I could play around Daze, which is what I'm going to do. This is going to be a big chunk of life back into them. More than we're attacking for this turn. Force of Negation, you got it. What about second Plow? It's going to be a big hit here. Okay, I think we're going to get 1 Plains and 1 Scrubland. I guess this could be a swamp at this point. I don't believe our opponent's going to have main deck Price of Progress or anything, but it's kind of free for us to play around it. What do we want here? Is it Ocelot Pride or is it Guide of Souls? Probably Guide of Souls. And then when we warp this next time, we can get the Ocelot Pride going. Got 2-turn clock now. Dragon's Rage Channeler. That is delirious. I'm going to attack with this cat. If it dies, we get an Ajani as a Planeswalker. I don't think they want us to have that, but they might not just have a choice at all here. So this flips. And then we go Guide of Souls. This game looks very over to me. In comes the Ajani. Get a little bit of energy here. Alright, I'll probably just Scooby to this, which is reasonable because our board is pretty much insurmountable for the type of deck our opponent is playing. What would I like? I would like this card which blows up Corey Steelcutter and Murktide Regent. That seems like a useful thing to have into our deck. I'm not really interested in any other pieces. So what are the weak spots here? I think you all know what I'm going to say here, and it's probably the Braids, right? It's on our off colour, so getting the black is not easy. They get to choose if they sacrifice opponent and let us draw a card, which isn't ideal. And also, it's a 3-drop against the Day's Wasteland deck when we're just lowering our curve. So I'm afraid we got to say goodbye to Braids here. We did have that one game we played it, and it was kind of like an ideal spot for it, and it still didn't look great. How do we feel about this one? We have a stable mana base, which isn't a bad thing. We have a 2-drop on the draw. We have a removal spell for something big or a cutter. I think this is on the low end of keepable. I think the power of our deck in the matchup means that we got a lot of good draws. They're not playing a turn 1 threat, which is spectacular news. I think I'll play out the Marsh Flats. I'm not going to warp in this Haliya to just gain 1 life. Can play this the same turn that we do in Orcish Bowmasters, and then that gets us the 3 bodies to get the extra card. So we might go for something like Starfield Shepherd on turn 2. And then we can go into Haliya plus Bowmasters. But if our opponent gives us a 1/1 creature to shoot down with the Bowmasters, you can bet I'm going to take that. I don't know if I want to get a Surveil Land here. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave it for a bit. I think this is going to be a swamp. And then we're going to warp this in. I'm not expecting this to resolve. This is kind of bait. It's just a very bad tutor in the scheme of things. Because we get a 1-drop for 2 mana. Beautiful. I wanted to trade that for a card. This was just like a... Oh, what was that card from Ravnica that was... Or Dissension, I think it was maybe. That was just 2 mana Thoughtseize, basically. That's kind of how that felt. A Brainstorm before they play anything else out. So Corey Steelcutter won't be making any tokens this turn. That's what they have. We already have an answer for Murktide, which is one of the ways this game can run away. They finally found a guy. A Thoughtseize. I don't know if that's the thing we want to be firing off immediately, but it does give us a pretty good turn. Maybe the Haliya has to wait till later. I'm willing to Thoughtseize here. The usefulness of this card does obviously wane as the game goes on, so getting it out now is pretty solid. Days, Lightning Bolt, Murktide Regent, Unholy Heat. So we take the Days here, and then we can just go Scrubland, Bowmasters, guaranteed to kill their guy. They're obviously going to just Unholy Heat this, but that's fine because we have the answer for the Murktide already. We're treating this as a removal spell, and if they then spend a card on it, it's got a 2 for 1, and then we also have the 1/1 body left over, so it's a 3 for 1 out there. Now, you could argue that the 1/1 body isn't the most useful thing in the world, and I would agree with you, but it's something. It's material. They didn't burn it at end step. I guess they knew what the top card was via the Brainstorm, and they want to draw it. We know if they cast the Murktide Region, they don't have Force of Will, because this is the blue card, they have 1 mystery card. If they have Force, they might not cast the Murktide. Shooting our poor little friend here. Just poor innocent Bowmasters. Okay, Brainstorm was the last card. Interesting, because they could have shuffled this away, but I guess because they had 2 removal spells, they're quite happy to burn one of the Bowmasters anyway. And then we have Delver again. We're in the market for finding a little bit more action. I'm going to bash in with this Orc army, and then we're going to just cast this Haliya. We have the ability to Karakas it if they Lightning Bolt it. This will gain us 1 life and put us back to 18. This also gives us enough pressure to outclock our opponent, and then we can kill their Murktide if they tap out for that, expecting it to be the thing that gets them over the line. And at some point, we have a Yorion. We're building up to that in a couple of turns, and once we assemble Yorion plus Karakas, that's very annoying for our opponent to get through. They did reveal another Brainstorm. Their 3rd Brainstorm they've revealed off of this Delver flip. Big Daddy Murktide. So we have perfect information of their hand here. Ocelot Pride. Is this where we're going to try and fight with our opponent? I think I just want to get this exercise in. Go get your daily exercise. You can see the Brainstorm. They have to have Force of Will and blue card here. We are going to get to do the whole Ocelot Pride making cats thing as well. And we have a Surveil Land to boot. This taps them out of the Lightning Bolt as well, which guarantees the cat making at least 1 friend. I hope this resolves. It did resolve. That's always good news. Let's deploy a kitty cat. This will gain us 1 life off the Haliya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're not quite at the City's Blessing, but it is pretty close. So we put the Haliya on the bottom. I don't think we're going to get enough life here. We gain another life. This is the 2nd point of life we get. So we're not quite drawing a card yet, but next turn, if we get the City's Blessing, we will be drawing a card. We could also bounce the Haliya to guarantee a life if we need that. They now have a good target for that lightning bolt that wasn't great a minute ago. And there it is. They've got one card in hand. They are behind on the race. I will get a Surveil land here. I don't think I'm too bothered by price of progress. I think getting a little bit of selection is going to be well worth it here. Shadowy Backstreet. Let's have a look. Yes, I would like to take an Overlord of the Balemurk. That card is bananas. I could just hard cast this. Our opponent has a Daze. We could pay. Alternatively, we could not hard cast it. Possibly cast a creature that comes off of it. And if not, we can then Yorion. Alright, I'm going to Impending this. We're going to pop out our graveyard now because it's going to be a zone we're dipping into often. Orcish Bowmasters, Starfield Shepherd, Ocelot Pride. These cards are all bangers, aren't they? I'm going to take the Bowmasters here, actually. Send in these two clowns. Are you trading off your Insectile Aberration? Possibly. I will still do this to force damage. If a Murktide comes down, things could get a little bit spooky for us. This is going to give us an extra card draw, which is one of the reasons I took the Bowmasters. Oh no, it's not going to give us a card draw, is it? Because we're not making an extra guy, are we? Whoops. We're still getting the life, though. And this is ticking down. Yeah, we don't get our free cat at end of turn here to give us the extra bit we need, and this isn't a creature. So brain just blanked on that for a sec. This is insurmountable for our opponent, but I think a Murktide Regent is definitely the first step to getting control back of this game. They know we're hellbent. This Bauble is not what they need right now. And if they're drawing into the Bowmasters, that is not a great sign for them. So they've had a look. They don't want the top cards. They're shuffling it away. A lightning bolt on the Bowmasters. This is good for them. It means they're not going to get stung by a ping off of their Bauble trigger. Are they blocking with this or not? So they didn't block with it last turn. Ocelot Pride. That's going to go pretty big here, isn't it? Attack with the Orc army. I'm going to deploy this Ocelot Pride, which is going to just send us into the Stratosphere. And then we're also going to put this Yorion into our hand. So we have the City's Blessing. This means that Ocelot Pride is going to give us 2 tokens, which is going to give us 2 life gain and draw us a card. And now we're just very much in the value zone. Our opponent's tempo deck has us at 20 life. This is not the position that their deck tends to win games from. If we get really desperate, we can start bouncing and recasting Haliya, but I think the best thing is to just... They put 2 on the bottom. Okay. The thing we're just trying to do here is lock this game up with a Yorion. We can blink this, this, and this. That gets us 3 triggers. Makes the Haliya go. Makes the... I guess the Ocelot Pride won't make tokens if we do that. We can still get an extra card, though, if we stack the triggers the right way. Although this won't trigger. Alright, we've got the GGs in chat. I don't blame them. This looked pretty difficult for them to overcome. I think in matchups like this, we look like a better version of Death and Taxes. We don't have quite the same level of like late gamey stuff as a Death and Taxes deck, but we have enough to beat these tempo decks. But we have a really nice way that we can go level with them because we've got a much lower curve than Death and Taxes, so they can't ever just do the, okay, we're going to cheese you out with a few like Days and Wastelands and stuff and strand cards in your hand. We just get to play our stuff up. Really like that one. Okay, so we are 2-2. We've got 1 round to go. Let's see if we can put a positive win rate on the board. Well, this is a pretty good curve. We can Thoughtseize, and then we get information about whether we want to be doing Ajani, Overlord, or Starfield Shepherd things. Seems quite likely that it's going to be more towards Ajani and just get that rolling and just get the pressure going, but we don't know what our opponent's doing. We'll keep this one. Our opponent's mulligan to 6. They are on the play. If they are something like Oopsal Spells, then they can just put us in the dirt. Alright, looks like we've dodged Oopsal Spells for a whole league. That's good news, everyone. What flavour of blue-black deck is this? A Ponder. They didn't shuffle, so they might be floating something good on top that we can't Thoughtseize. But there are combo decks our opponent could be playing, so I'm just going to fire him with this Thoughtseize right away. They could Daze this, obviously, which sets them back, making combo turns less likely. But if they're Doomsday, they can still combo. Him to Turak, Baragoyf, Fatal Push, Force of Will, Ponder. Interesting. At this precise moment, I'm not bothered by the Force of Will. It's the Him to Turak that's kind of annoying. I don't want our opponent to get 2-for-1s. I'm also not a big fan of this Baragoyf. Next turn, I guess if they want to hold up Force of Will, they probably can't Ponder. Alright, I'm going to take the Baragoyf just because I think we don't have an answer for it immediately, and if we just try and draw into one, we can't reliably do that because we're a Yorion deck, and we might just end up getting our clock cleaned by that. Him to Turak is definitely a doozy. If they've got a land, they just immediately smash it into us. If they hit both of our lands, it's pretty bad. Okay, so I figured they would probably have to do a Ponder this turn. which means we get a 2-drop of our choice out. Which 2-drop of our choice is it going to be? So we can get the Overlord running, but if they find a blue card for Force of Will, they shuffled off the pond. Okay. So looking for lands. If they have 2 cards in hand that aren't lands. Yes, I would like to Thoughtseize again, please. Tamiyo, a Hymn to Turak, Brainstorm. I guess we're not in a position to mess around with the Tamiyo. We might be getting him soon, though. We get the Surveil land, so we get a little bit of selection. Then next turn we can go Haliya into Ajani. That draws us a card. If they have a fetch land, they might be able to get this Fatal Push in at the Haliya. But Fatal Pushing a creature that is warped doesn't feel like a great mana exchange. But it stops us drawing a card, so it's going to be a 1-for-1, so probably worthwhile. But they need to find a land, and it needs to be a fetch land in order for that to work. Now, Force of Will is obviously going to be a thing that can be online here. But if they're trading 2-for-1, we're happy with those exchanges. A wasteland. Is that what we're doing here, opponent? Let's get this Backstreets. I don't think they want to be wastelanding us. Should I leave that on top? Do we just get a Scrubland here? I think we do. I think the Guide of Souls ends up being slightly better than the Haliya here. Let's play the Guide of Souls. Let's go for an Ajani. And now the pressure is on. We've got some bodies. If we do it with the Haliya, we do draw a card. But this way gets us more stuff to pressure, so we're not getting hit by any sort of like scary planeswalkers as easily because we can pressure them. Alright, we've got days out of our opponent's hand. That sets them back that land that they're probably just going to play and push our guy with. But all this is just like a song and dance until we get things going. Are they going to wasteland us here? We have perfect information of their hand here. I believe. No, they brainstormed actually, didn't they? So we don't have perfect information. Let's get the hatchery going. Let's get the Balemurk in. This is our insurance policy for the game going late, as well as our Yorion, of course. Right, Force of Will, they did have a blue card, so we've got another 2-for-1 here. I'm going to warp this. So there is a potential problem for us here. So what are they? Fatal Push is gone, and they Force of Willed away. Borrower. What are we going to get here? I think it's probably Ocelot Pride, because it combos with the Haliya better. Now, they could obviously Hymn to Karakas, but by playing it out, we at least have this card in the exile zone for later. Whereas if we just say, hold it because we don't want to get hymned, then we don't have this piece later on. So it's just about trying to make all our resources do the most that they possibly can. Oh, I like this one a lot. Let's warp this in. Let's play Voice of Victory. All right, we're just in on this one. That's good news. And we can play the Ocelot Pride, and we are steamrolling ahead. So we stack these triggers the correct way. So this goes, the warp goes on the very bottom, this one, and then the Ocelot Pride trigger. That's just the way you want to get used to stacking them. We don't quite get the card yet, but next turn we will do, because we can play this out, and then we get a bunch of tokens. We know our spells are going to resolve. Feels like we can really clean up against these sort of fair tempo decks. And the Hymns to Turak is a big sign our opponent's doing fair stuff. All right, that was simple enough. I would like some Exorcise, and I think I'm interested in Disruptor Flutes for their 2 Planeswalkers. I'm sorry, Braids, you're getting out of here. What comes out next is the question. We need 2 more cuts. The Ajani is fine in pressures, like it's okay. I guess we take that one out, and then we need 1 more cut. If we're worried about them bringing in Downty Voidwalkers, then the Overlord of the Balemurk might be a good one to cut. Could just take out one of the White Orchid Phantoms and try it like this. I think the main things we're scared of is a Murktide backed by a bunch of counter magic, which did beat us earlier in the league, or Planeswalkers. Now, generally speaking, we should be able to beat a Murktide. We've got a bunch of removal spells in our deck. We've got value. We can stall for a while until we draw them. We can overcome the counter magic, generally speaking. I don't like the lack of mana in this hand. I think we're going to send this one back. Be disciplined. All right, this one looks a bit better. We're still going to have a little bit too much land, but we can get rid of the Fetid Heath there. It's the most fragile land in terms of how they can collapse our mana base with Wastelands. I would rather have another spell over one of these lands, but I will take what we have here. Let's just get this hatchery ticking. We have 4 ways of blowing this up in our deck, which isn't the most, but the overall the Balemurk digs pretty deep. And there's a Brainstorm. Brainstorming at the end of our turn is kind of interesting. That suggests that they want to play around a Bowmasters that we can have on the following turn, and they have the potential for a big play this turn. A Thoughtseize. This is going to take half of the action in our hand. I think I'm going to start charging up the hatchery. Another Phelia. Not actually the one we wanted here, because the Phelia is legendary. But it does mean we can run this into a daze and we don't mind trading it for a card. Another end of turn Brainstorm like that. Obviously our opponent has a reason they're doing that, and it's for us to try and unpick what that reason might be. Presumably they've got like a big 3-mana play like a Barragoyf, and they want to try and resolve it. That's what makes sense for this turn. Make sure they have the land, and they can just cast the Barragoyf on curve. That's my guess anyway. Are we just playing a land and passing? Okay. Oh no, we're in the second main phase. Maybe something is going to happen. Nope. Okay, let's get a daze or something out of our opponent's hand. This is going to trade with something from our opponent. It's a daze. That's fine. If we didn't draw the second one, then we'd probably sandbag for a turn. Another hatchery. It's a little bit too much on the old hatchery front. This is going to be our surveil land. We're still going to drop this Phelia and try and surveil our way towards something that can impact this game. More sculpting from our opponent. They have a ponder. We have an end step Phelia into surveil land, but we're not going to crack this first. We're going to wait to see if our Phelia needs to be paid to get through a daze or not. Could still Barragoyf this turn. There's a land. Him to Tulrek. Let's put this Phelia in. Sure, we can discard 2 cards. It was 2 lands. That's all we've drawn, really. Have they got a Fatal Push to finish off the Phelia? I imagine so. Yeah. They don't have a threat, and they're down to 2 cards. They managed to get a nice 2-for-1 off here with the Him to Tulrek, though. Let's go and get ourselves a surveil land and just put an absolute bang on top of our deck, please. A very medium card I will put on top, though. I think it's fine. It makes a lot of the other cards that we can draw better. Get Guide of Souls in. We could draw a land and play a Yorion next turn, so I will put this into my hand at a cost of 2 life. We can flicker the Guide of Souls. It doesn't do anything, but we can still do it. We can basically give this vigilance, but it does risk us getting our Guide of Souls killed by a Consign to Memory, which might be in our opponent's deck against us. A Wasteland. Please wasteland my hatchery. I could do with 4 life. Alright, that is a certified banger right there. Can we resolve it, or is this Hardcast Force of Will? They didn't crack the Wasteland, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Hardcast Force of Will here. But if they do Force of Will, it means we know we can attack with the Guide of Souls without Bowmaster getting in the way. Yep. Alright, we get just a little attack in here. If we can draw the Souls of the Lost and blow up this Eumidian Hatchery, then all of a sudden the Guide of Souls is going to be chucking counters around, and we're going to be having a jolly good time. I'm not going to start charging up this hatchery. I think we'll find a difficult enough time getting one of these going. Do I want to get caught by a daze at this late stage of the game? I think we attack. If they have a Bowmasters, they can get our guy here, but then the Yorion doesn't get hit by Force of Will. Feels like they probably have a Force of Will. I am going to go for this Yorion here. We need to get something going, but what are they going to have in hand, right? It's got to be interaction. It's not a threat. Okay, at least it was a force and not a daze. That would have felt horrible. So they could have just bounced us under City Sewers. We are technically winning the race here. We've got this like storage Bitter Blossom ready to go. We just need to find a thing to pop it off. Just need to cast Armageddon. That's all we need. Armageddon is a card that I really like in the Voice of Victory decks that are really low to the ground, because you can just get into a situation, you know it's going to resolve, and it can just completely end the game on the spot. It's not for everyone, of course. It's very hard to waste us off of our colours here, but they can waste us off of a 5-drop, so we can't cast like Overlord or whatever. Oh, White Orchid Phantom, you say? We're doing this pre-combat so that we can get a bunch of counters on our Guide of Souls. This is an absolute banger of a draw. Let's blow up our Eumidian Hatchery. I think I'm going to get a Swamp so they can't waste us off of black. We're going to get a whole bunch of guys here unless they have... Okay, no Consign to Memory is pretty good news for us. We're going to gain all that life we lost to the insect, to the hatchery in the first place. This attacks. I will stick some counters on it. So we've got plenty of energy now. It's going to put our opponent to 10. So this is 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have lethal on board. A Ponder, that's a good way of finding some answers, but I don't know if they're going to have a sweeper. Toxic Deluge is a card that you sometimes see as a one-of in these decks, in the sideboard. They shuffled a Polluted Delta, and we win the game. Alright, that felt really good. This is how I would expect the tempo matchups. Sorry, this is how I'd expect the tempo matchups to go in general. I think that was a little bit more one-sided than it should have been. It should be a little bit closer, but I think we do edge them out the majority of the time. We finished with a positive record. We were close to winning the third game as well in match 3. I think that was the one where there was a Tamiyo that just managed to get active super early and just blew us out in one of the games. So this could have easily gone the other way, and I think generally speaking I would be happy to play into that matchup. As for the Cradle Control matchup, that felt real tough. we didn't necessarily have enough removal. But let's talk about the deck. First things first, I like this deck and I enjoyed playing it. Now, there are a few things that I'm not sold on in the list. And as you can imagine, the first one that draws my attention is Braids. I am not particularly interested in this card, if I'm being honest. I used to play World Queller in Standard when that came out ages ago, because that made them sacrifice a thing. This gives your opponent an option, and Punisher cards tend to not be good. They can just lose 2 life and give us a card, which is obviously a good thing, but they still get to choose. So we couldn't use this as removal like we wanted to, and it just made me want to just have like another copy of Solitude in the deck instead. Now, I understand that this is a way of being able to blow up our own hatchery and to a lesser extent the Flagstones, but I don't think we even need to do that when we have 5 ways between these cards and we have the 4 Overlord which can dig for them. I think that's probably enough. Obviously, you could always play your friend and mine, Armageddon, but that's a different conversation that we'll probably be having in a minute though. I think I would rather just get rid of the Braids and just go up on the good cards in our deck. So you could just go -2 on this and go +1 Voice of Victory, +1 Solitude. The Voice of Victory makes the Ajani better, so that's just like a combo right there. In a way, it would be nice if we could have something like Stoneforge Mystic for Meteor Sword and the equipment, pre-war formal wear. It would be nice if we could fit that in, but I don't think we can just fit in another 6 slots somehow in this list. I just don't think that's viable without dramatically changing it. You could change away from doing like the Fetid Heath stuff and like the Eumidian Hatchery stuff. So you could go like lose the Guide of Souls, the 4 White Orchid Phantoms. That gives you 5 slots to play with. So you'd only need to trim 1 thing, and you could get Stoneforge, Meteor Sword, and pre-war formal wear in your deck. And maybe you just end up trimming a Starfield Shepherd because you're replacing this with a Stoneforge. I do like the Starfield Shepherd generally, but 5 mana is a bit of a big ask. So we could just cut these and cut this and these, and that gets us Stoneforge, pre-war formal wear, Meteor Sword, and gives us 1 other slot to play with. I don't think that looks too shabby as an idea. And obviously in that configuration we'd also be maxing on Solitudes and Voice of Victories. Now, the other side of the coin that we could do here, like I think that would probably be the best way that you could play this deck. However, if we want to try and play into the Eumidian Hatchery, I think we need to play harder into this scheme. So I would play 4 Eumidian Hatcheries and 4 Flagstones, and then we tinker the mana base around a little bit more. I guess we just end up playing Smallpox, don't we? Which I have played on the channel before. But we could play these and the Flagstones, and then we try and drop the curve, if we can. So we get rid of the Braids. We get rid of the Braids, we get rid of the Starfield Shepherd. That gives us Voice of Victory, Solitude. I think we do want those. That gets us 2 Armageddons. How do we get a 3rd Armageddon in the deck? We probably get rid of like a Souls of the Lost for a 3rd Armageddon. And then we have Armageddon as our Eumidian Hatchery Destroyer, as well as just having these White Orchid Phantoms, which are fine. They can block and attack, and we can eventually grind people out by blinking them with Phelia and stuff. That would be a route I'd be interested in exploring as well. I really like Armageddon alongside Voice of Victory, because people just aren't ready to lose all their lands. And if we can make that Armageddon one-sided by having 8 things that just don't care about it, and also having a really low curve, because the curve of that deck would basically stop at 2 for the most part. We can cast every card in our deck for at least for 2 mana or less. So, you know, this we can cast for 2. This wouldn't be in the deck at that point. This we can obviously cast for 0. This wouldn't be in the deck. This can be cast for 1. So you get what I'm saying. We could really lower the curve and just put a bunch of stuff out that is better than what our opponent has in play, and then just say no to lands, and that's the end of the game. I do quite like that as a strategy, because it can take a bit of time to sort of dig your way through to get out of like the Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride holes you can put your opponent in. So that is the sort of other way that I would consider taking this. I think I prefer playing decks like this to Death and Taxes. I think Death and Taxes is a good deck, but I think the curve is a little bit higher than I would like to play in Legacy right now. And this is the best thing you can do in white, I think. Like the best proactive thing you can do in white is Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride. And we're also doing the other good thing you can do in ORZHOV colours, which is Phelia, Overlord, Balemurk. So we've got that covered. We've got a much better early start than the Death and Taxes deck get. Like, playing Aethervine in 2025 just doesn't seem like where I want to be. Just smashing a bunch of stuff down early does feel real good, though. And the Voice of Victory makes the Ajani better, as you already discussed. So I think this deck has got a lot of juice to it, and I would be happy to play either of the other versions I just mentioned of this deck. I think they both look very solid. As for the sideboard, we didn't use the Deafening Silence or the Leyline of the Void because of the matchups we played. We also didn't use the Null Rod. So we didn't get a lot of use out of our sideboard, but I'm glad we had the tools there because those are the matchups that we're going to struggle against. But by having a lower curve and being more aggressive, that makes us better against some of the combo decks, especially things like Doomsday that use their Life Turtle as a resource. We get to actually start pressuring that from as early as turn 1, which means we're going to have a better time against them than something like a Death and Taxes deck would do. So I think this kind of ends up being grindy enough, which is all you really need. You don't need to be super grindy like Death and Taxes can be because there's not that many decks trying to go that long, and we're going to be outgrinding most of the decks anyway. But then we just get a more aggressive slant. So I really like a list that looks like this. And maybe someone will be kind and donate to the channel to see more of it, because I wouldn't mind playing this. I'm not really like a little white weenie Death and Taxes type guy, but like a white weenie, like more aggressive type stuff, I can get behind that. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and check out my sponsors 3for1 Trading if you want any of the cards for this deck. Support me and other legacy content creators. So doing a good job keeping the content flowing, so why not send them a few pennies when you're buying some cards. All right, remember to check out the Patreon and YouTube memberships and have a lovely day. Goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbo Depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.